Welcome to the Explainer. Today we are decoding a really important form that pretty much every buyer, seller, landlord, and tenant in Texas is going to come across. Seriously, if you're doing anything with real estate in Texas, you gotta know this.
So, you're thinking about jumping into the real estate market in the Lone Star State? Awesome. But hey, before you get too far down that road, there's this one particular document that you're going to see almost right away.
It's called the Information About Brokerage Services form. Yeah, that's a mouthful. So everyone just calls it the IABS. And trust me, getting a handle on this one little page is your first and probably most important step to a smarter, safer transaction.
We're going to break this all down into 4 easy parts. First up, what is this form really? Then we'll figure out who all the players are, who works for whom. After that, we'll cover the rules they all have to play by. And finally, the best part, how you can use all this info to your advantage. So, let's get into it.
Okay, let's tackle this first section. We need to get the single most important detail about this form out of the way right now, because honestly, this is the one thing that trips up almost everybody. So the IABS is basically an information sheet that the state of Texas requires you to get. You want to make sure you have the latest version, IABS 1.2, which was updated in late 2025. Just think of it as the official rules of the road for how a real estate pro can work with you.
And here it is, the crucial point. Signing or putting your initials on the IABS just means you're saying, yep, I got it. It is not a contract. Let me say that again. It does not in any way lock you into working with that agent or their company. It is purely for your information and your protection.
Now, agents are legally required to hand this form to you at what the law calls the first substantive communication. What does that mean? Well, basically, as soon as your chat stops being casual and starts getting serious about a specific property or what you're looking for, boom, they have to give you this form. It's a rule designed to make sure you know your rights right from the get-go.
All right, so now that we know what the form is for, let's get clear on who's who in this whole process. Understanding these roles is key, because the terms can get a little confusing sometimes.
It's actually pretty simple when you break it down. Just think of the broker as the head coach of the team. They're the company, the one who's legally responsible for everything that happens. The sales agent, then, is the player on the field that you work with directly. They work for and are sponsored by that broker. Okay, now let's talk about the different hats an agent can wear. First, an agent can represent the property owner, the seller, or the landlord. In this situation, their number one duty, their legal responsibility, is to that owner. That means they are bound by law to act in the seller's best financial interests. Second, an agent can represent you, the buyer or the tenant, and when they do that, they are hired to be your advocate. Their job is to fight for your best interests all the way through the deal.
And third, there's this more complex role called an intermediary. This happens when one real estate company ends up representing both the buyer and the seller in the same transaction. To make this work, they have to act like a totally neutral referee, and they absolutely must get written permission from both sides first.
Now, the rules for an intermediary are super strict, and for good reason. It's all about preventing conflicts of interest. For example, they can't tell the buyer that the seller is desperate and would take a lower price, and they can't tell the seller that the buyer is willing to pay more, not unless they get specific, written permission. It's all about ensuring total fairness when one firm is in the middle of everything. So we know who the players are and the roles they can play. Now let's get into the nitty-gritty. The legal ditties they actually owe you once you decide to hire them. This is really the heart of what representation is all about. These 4 duties are basically the legal foundation of real estate representation in Texas. An agent has to put your interests first, period. They have to tell you everything important they know, they have to present all offers and answer your questions, and, this is a big one, they have to treat everyone in the transaction honestly, even the person on the other side of the deal. Whoa. Okay, now here is a huge, relatively new rule that you absolutely need to know. The days of just casually calling up an agent and looking at houses based on a verbal agreement, yeah, those are over. In Texas, before an agent can show you a single house, you have to have a written agreement with them. In that written agreement, it's not just some formality. It's legally required to be crystal clear about everyone's responsibilities and, this is important, exactly how the agent is going to get paid. Putting all this in writing protects everybody and it helps prevent any big arguments down the road. All right, so you've got all this knowledge. How do you actually use it in the real world? Well, let's flip that IABS form over, metaphorically, and look at the bottom section. This is where the agent fills in all their info. See, this part of the form gives you total transparency.
It literally lists the entire chain of command that's legally responsible for your deal, all the way from the agent you're talking to their direct supervisor, and right up to the head broker of the entire firm.
And here's exactly what you need to look for: the full name, the license number, the email, and the phone number for every single one of those people. This isn't just a list of contacts, it's a map of accountability. You know exactly who everyone is.
And here is your pro tip. You can take any of those license numbers, go to the Texas Real Estate Commission's official website, that's trec.texas.gov, and pop that number into their search tool. In seconds, you can check that their license is active and see if they have any public disciplinary actions against them. It's powerful stuff.
So you see, in the end, the IABS form isn't just more paperwork you have to deal with. It's a tool. It's a tool of empowerment. It gives you the clarity you need to start your real estate journey with confidence, and it helps you answer the most important question of all: who do you want on your team?